Hello and welcome to AutoFocus. Today we are going to be driving two SUVs that have been built on the same platform. This is the MFA2 platform, also shared with siblings like the GLA and the A-Class. This platform is versatile and it has helped Mercedes develop both an electric version to my left and a petrol and diesel version to my right. Both these vehicles going to be competing in different segments, though they are similar in many respects, as you can see. Let's first talk about the EQB, which we're going to be driving first, all the way from Kodai to Madurai. And going downhill is going to be great fun to drive a vehicle with a lot of weight at the bottom. The battery pack is under the floor, and I'm expecting a lot of dynamics from this car too. Mercedes-Benz has decided to launch both the GLB and the EQB together in one shot. It's just been unveiled earlier yesterday in the evening, and today we're here to drive both the GLB and the EQB. The EQB is longer than the GLB, but it's just a bit like 30 mm or so in terms of length, lesser than the GLC, which is its larger sized cousin, priced at a slightly different level. Now this is a vehicle that also gets all the right clearances. 155 mm of ground clearance, was very easy to tackle much of the speed breakers and bad roads that we faced in some of the sections earlier today. That is a very reassuring thing for an electric coming from Mercedes. The EQC and the EQS have clearances which may be a little troublesome with some of the bad speed breakers that are out there. But this is going to be pretty convenient to drive. It's versatile, it's practical in terms of space. So the EQB is from the EQ family, Mercedes's electric portfolio. So obviously it has a lot of that design language that we are familiar with coming in from Mercedes's EQ portfolio. The front solid grille, of course there is no breathing required since there is no engine, and the connected headlamps and the connected tail lamps delivering that same family lineage that we have come to see from the EQ family. Also it helps the EQB, since the EQB from a side profile might seem like a fairly narrow and long three-row SUV. When you look at it from the front and from the rear, thanks to the lighting elements, it does deliver a wider stance. It is also a fairly spacious vehicle from the inside, and that 3-meter wheelbase immediately delivers that impact that you would expect while getting into the car, that it will be a spacious SUV inside. This is also a little longer than the GLB from the perspective of length. It of course has the battery pack under the floor, which then needs an extra sort of protection. So it has smaller rims but a higher profile tire to help that clearance requirements that's needed for the Indian conditions. Overall, the design is very unique. It is still the GLB for the most part, especially from the side profile. It's very difficult to distinguish it from the GLB. One of the first things I observed after I got into the EQB is the fact that the cabin doesn't feel in any way that it has been built to offer a compromise, to be a sort of like a price sensitive cabin. It is equipped with a lot of good stuff in it, and that's one of the first things that come across the moment I step in. The EQB of course will be CBU. It is going to be imported and sold in India, and that means then what you're getting in the cabin is pretty much what's being offered in Europe. Cabin trim elements, a lot of them are very similar to the GLB, which is not a surprise, but there are lots of choice of materials for the dashboard inlays, for the door panels, for some of the other elements where the choice of materials is again very upmarket and very unique. The wind turbine style aircon vents now have rose gold finish for the fans. It also has textured metal panel on the dashboard and on the door trim. It has the same twin 10.25-inch display screens for both the instrument cluster and the infotainment system. It is now embedded with the NTG6 MBUX inbuilt ecosystem. Door sill panels are illuminated with the EQB branding. There is upholstery in two-tone Artico man-made leather, and there is of course fabric inserts in places. The multi-function sports steering wheel is stitched in Napa leather. There's a lot of functions that are accessible right at the steering wheel, and of course it has a Mercedes-Benz's touch panel for scrolling and viewing some of the multi-information display details. Boot volume when the seats are folded can be about 465 to 1620 liters, depending on whether you have folded up the third and the second row seats. With all seats in use, of course, the boot space is a fairly 110 to 150 liters in terms of space. Easy access tailgate is very useful if your hands are going to be busy carrying your shopping. It also gets a panoramic sunroof as standard, and overall there's a lot of quality cabin vibes that you get while sitting in the cabin. The EQB's differentiators minimal in terms of the hardware itself, but the driving experience of course is where the EQB makes a difference versus the GLB. Similar to the GLB, the EQB cabin is good to see that they are both fairly upmarket. There is the kind of hierarchy, reduction in features that we've seen in some of the other brands has not happened here, and that's a good first bit. There is of course some differentiators in the backlit trim on the dashboard that the EQB gets and the kind of ambient lighting that it gets that makes it a little different compared to the GLB. In terms of seating space and the amount of overall legroom and knee room that you would get in the EQB, it's very similar to the GLB, with quite a bit of that knee room that you get in the second row of seats, which is going to be appreciated by a lot of owners who are going to be chauffeur driven. Mercedes-Benz officials say that it can get up to a 10 to 80% charge in just 32 minutes if you're going to be using 100 kilowatt DC fast charging outlet. The other option of course is if you were to be using an AC 11 kilowatt outlet that would be installed by Mercedes-Benz at your residence or your office, if you so wish, will take about 6 hours and 25 minutes to give you a 100% charge all the way down from 10% charge. This is special for a market like India because we don't have a model that really competes with it except in the mass market segment. So we have something like the MG ZS, and then we have in the luxury segment a first with the EQB. This is SUV that has two motors. One is an ASM motor and the other is a PSM motor. Together they deliver peak power of about 225 horsepower and 390 newton meters of torque. The EQB is built on what Mercedes calls the EVA 1.5 architecture, 400 volt battery electric system, and it is capable of delivering a WLTP range of about 423 kilometers. When I started out from Kodai today, it showed me a range of about 368 kilometers. We shall see what it's kind of capable of doing by the end of the day today. After we cover about 134 kilometers, that's the distance to our destination. But in the meantime, this is a real world range of about 350 kilometers can be expected with cautious driving. But I would say even if you were to travel with a slightly heavy foot, you should be able to get nearly 300 kilometers from this EQB. The top speed has been restricted to 160 kilometers, and this is a vehicle that sits very, very nicely in the electric portfolio that Mercedes now has. Mercedes has already launched 3 electrics this year, and the GLC has been in the portfolio for a while now. It's been mostly downhill, so there's been a lot of recuperation. The range that it has been showing is actually pretty consistently matching with what we started out with. So it's currently reading 378 kilometers of range still left with the battery pack, which of course is because we've been coming downhill. The story would be very different if you were to go uphill. But overall, the experience has been great. With the EQB, it is SUV with a different character. It has mild references to a family when it comes to the 3-row seating, its elongated size, and of course the fact that it is electric makes it even more special for people who are looking to get into the EV ecosystem after dumping ICE right behind them. So from that perspective, the EQB is going to be a new segment altogether for people that have been looking to go electric, and this has the kind of handling, the dynamics and the agility of a smaller car, more because it's a 2-ton plus vehicle and a lot of that weight is coming from the battery pack that's located under the floor.